Hello, Coach Diana and I are
Oh,
here on Leslie's public page. Welcome, everyone. Let us know you're here as we're going live also on Instagram.
mhm.
All right. So, welcome, everybody, wherever you're tuning in from. We have a heavy topic, Diana, for Friday, I think.
We do?
Yes, silencing shame without the guilt. Whenever I have to talk about shame, it just feels a little heavy. This is a tough
Yeah,
emotion, it's a tough topic, but one that I think is really important. So I'm glad you're here with me.
I'm glad to be here too. Shame for me is an odd concept to define. I think it's something you feel, but for me, it's hard to really define what it is and what it looks like, you know?
Yeah, I do know. And I think, with my work with people, I don't think many people even know the feeling. I think it's one of those emotions and body sensations that's pretty sneaky.
Mm.
And people are not really tuned in and really not even aware of how it's playing out in their lives. But what I find is it does play out in people's lives
For real.
in a
Yeah.
big way.
Well, I hope that's something that we can take some time today to help our listeners understand and identify when it shows up for them.
Yes. And because this is a heavy topic, we would love engagement as long as you feel comfortable. But just a reminder that this is a public page, so anything you write in the chat can be read by anybody. And so just be mindful of that. If you have something that you want to get to us privately in terms of questions around shame, you can send those to leslievernick.com/question/. And we have our support team here helping us, and we will get those questions and be able to answer those before we end today, hopefully.
Absolutely. So maybe we should ask the audience, how do you define shame? And how does it show up for you? When do you notice it's there? How do you identify it?
Mm-hmm. Great question.
Yeah.
So it's probably not something that many people spend time thinking about, that
Mhm.
question. And so we are causing you to think about that. Perhaps you have an answer to that, or maybe there's just a growth process in the reflection of that.
Yeah. I don't know, for me, I would just say for me, I am more of a sensory person. I don't identify with the thoughts of it as much as feel the heaviness of it
Mm-hmm.
when I'm feeling ashamed. Uh,
Yeah. And do you have some insight as an example of what it feels like? How do you sense it?
Yeah, and, as we're talking about it, thoughts do come up for me about what might be attached to it, but I just feel bad about myself.
Mm-hmm.
There may be some I shoulds attached to it. I should
Mm-hmm.
not be here. I should know better. I should do better. You know, yeah,
Yeah, so some judgments on your personhood.
very good. Yeah, I think that
And
you.
maybe even I would go farther than judgment of condemnation. Usually, shame is more condemnation, right? An attack on yourself.
So, can you put that into words?
Well, even, what you're saying is, I shouldn't be here, right? That sounds more like a condemnation of, I
Yeah.
don't deserve to be here. I'm worthless, kind of.
Oh, I love that word. I'm worthless. Yeah. Like, I don't like myself. I don't like myself when that's all that verbiage, but it's more like when I feel like I don't like myself, it just like is a punch in the gut. Yeah.
A punch in the gut, yeah. And
Mhm.
Stacey's saying, when I want to hide under a rock, I know shame is there. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good description. I find that as well. This desire to hide, to make myself small, to go undetected somewhere, right? Like
Yeah.
under a rock or under a desk.
And I might also say, what's wrong with me?
Mm,
Shame is really isolating.
it is.
I think, often when we feel shame, we want to hide and isolate, and then we're in it alone and we don't get help.
Mhm. Yeah. And I think what we're noticing in terms of what people are putting in the chat and what you're talking about, Diana, is universally it just feels bad,
Mm.
right? It is a horrible, deeply painful emotion to experience.
You know, Susan, I think there is a truth that sometimes we can feel shame in situations that we're in, but we often carry deep seated beliefs and feelings about shame that we're not even aware of, that we've been carrying probably since we were young.
Absolutely. And you said that it's more sensory for you. It's not always a thought, but you did put words to that sensory.
Did.
And
Yeah.
and I find that many people with some work and tuning into themselves can come up with those statements that really come from early childhood of I'm deeply flawed, or there's something inherently wrong with me. I'm
Yeah.
unlovable. I'm not worthy of goodness. There is an attack on our personhood that comes from early on.
Yeah. That's well said. So we're hearing a little bit from you out there, and I thank you for your interaction with us because it makes it a good moment when we hear from you and when you do interact with us. And I see Julie's saying shame is always from the enemy. What do you think about that?
Well, that's a great deep question. And I think it is incited from the enemy to derail us, but as with everything, God can use it for good. So shame can point us to a savior, which I think is a benefit.
I would say shame is not always from the enemy. I would say, I would reframe that a little bit to say shame is always used by the enemy.
Yes.
Shame, I think, has many underpinnings and it comes from many different sources, but it is a tool and a weapon of the enemy to take us down.
Mm. Hmm. Yeah, I like that. And we see that early on in scripture too. The serpent enters the garden and he doesn't move right to shame.
Yeah.
It's sneaky. And so I think it's going to be sneaky in all of our lives as well. I think the serpent preyed on insecurity to move them toward shame. And shame is really what then derailed them, right? The behaviors around shame, hiding, blaming.
Yeah.
But initially, the serpent said, hey, God knows if you eat that fruit, you're going to be like him. In other words, he was saying, you're not like God, you're less than God, and you're not good enough.
Get caught up. Yeah.
And they didn't like that, right? Nobody wants to think about themselves as not good enough. And there's this striving to be good enough that moved them into sin and shame and hiding and blaming.
Yeah. And I love what Julie has said about the difference between shame and conviction.
Mm,
And we want to be very clear about that, don't we? Like what conviction is versus shame.
yes.
Conviction for me is a prompting really of my conscience or the Holy Spirit that something needs to be looked at. And there may be repentance involved,
Mhm.
acknowledgement, reflecting on what I can own, what I need to do different. Whereas I think shame is about, shame would say, I am bad. Conviction is, I've done bad.
Mm. Yeah. Conviction, I think, helps us to recover, where
Mhm.
shame tends to get into a downward spiral, doesn't it?
Yes. So we want to be clear with that. Yeah. Because people can manipulate us into picking up things that don't belong to us or taking responsibility from that,
Mm.
where we don't own responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think shame shields us from taking responsibility by a lot of different kinds of behaviors, right? Sometimes lying or hiding, self-sabotage.
Yeah. I and one thing I want to say is I don't want shame to be my identity. And I
Mm,
have to be careful with that because when, like I told you, I'm a sensory person. So when I'm feeling shame, I mean, it feels like who I am. And so those feelings lie to me about the truth of my identity.
mhm,
And again, we talk a lot about we have feelings and we have beliefs or thoughts, but they don't own us and we get to choose. And so it's really important if you're feeling shame or you're in a relational dynamic with somebody and shame is being heaped on you, that I don't know, Susan, I like the thought of just holding my hands out and saying, I'm not going to take that on or
mm,
receive that. I'm going to think about it for a minute because I don't want to absorb that into who I am.
mhm. Yeah, I love that. Sometimes this motion even, right, can be helpful
Totally.
of
Yeah.
creating that emotional boundary. I don't want to absorb that shame because it may not belong to me. So taking that moment of self-reflection can be so helpful.
Shame is not my name.
I like that. Yes. It is not your name. And so part of what we do in our work is help people define what is your name, right? Who are you? What is your identity? What do you want that to be? And who has God called you to be? What
Yeah.
name has he given you? Mhm. So lots of engagement in the chat. Thank you for that, ladies.
I do believe that shame can be used as a weapon by the enemy and by people who are our enemies, kind of, when they're not lovers of our soul and when they're not moving in redemption toward us and walking in the love of Christ. It can be used as a weapon spiritually as well, and also in family systems. So we can look for it in those ways. I think families of origin stuff can really be shame based. Some of us have been parented um, in shame based
Mhm.
homes, and so it can go really deep.
Mhm. It can go really deep and infiltrate lots of areas of life.
Um,
Mhm.
I don't know about you, Susan. I'm way more aware of other emotions that I carry than shame. Shame for me, it hides under a cloak. I have to kind of root it out.
Yes.
What do you notice?
I think that's true. I think with people I work with, I do notice that a
Yeah,
lot. It's not easily detectable until you do some investigation and get to really know yourself. It,
right.
I think it is one of those very sneaky emotions that wants to take you out.
So here's a question for you out there. Where in your life do you feel the need to hide or shrink?
Mm,
Take a moment and think about that. Where do I feel the need to hide or shrink?
mm. So it may be in particular situations
Mhm.
with particular people in your life, certain relationships.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And as you think about that, there may be shame hiding under that rock, right?
Hmm.
So I'm wondering, as you take time to think through that, what are you noticing? And if you're feeling comfortable sharing that in the chat, feel free to do that.
Hmm. I think that's a hard question for people to answer, but I think it's an important one to explore.
Mm.
Mm. Yeah, so Janice is talking about embarrassment versus feeling ashamed.
Mm.
So if we were to tease that apart a little bit, what do you think the difference is there?
Well, I'm not going to speak to Janice's situation, but I'm going to take this and use this as an example.
Yeah.
So, Janice, I may not, I don't know all the details. So don't take this as if I know your particular situation. When you say that what happened in my marriage and the downfall of my marriage, I don't know if I'm embarrassed or ashamed. I think ashamed is taking ownership that I wasn't enough. I didn't do enough. It's my fault. It's all of that attached with it. And now I'm a marked woman because of that. To me, it's a fatalistic perspective of there's no recovery here. Embarrassed is I think embarrassment is a lighter form of shame. I think it's all on the same spectrum. What do you think, Susan?
Yeah, and I would say shame is more inward looking, whereas embarrassment might be looking at what are people thinking of me,
Good.
right? Other people are having an opinion about me rather than
Right.
having an opinion about me.
Yeah, that's excellent. Like shame is, this is all on me, and embarrassment is what will people think of me.
Mhm. So they may go hand in hand.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah. But it's
And when I think of that, I do think embarrassment feels a little bit lighter in terms of recovery. It's, gaining resilience to overcome embarrassment, whereas shame feels more, I think, deep and painful and takes a little bit more resilience to overcome.
mm, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, so some great things coming in. Thank you for engaging with this.
Mhm. Yeah, so how does shame show up?
And then, Kristen's talking about feeling shame after an argument because you end up not reacting poorly. So that might go into the discussion on guilt, right? Guilt and shame are different. And I think, guilt is more of I violated my values. I didn't show up the way I wanted to show up. And that's the nudging that I'm in misalignment to myself or God's will, and I want to turn back to that, right? So guilt can be really useful in helping us turn. I think shame again goes deeper to something's wrong with me. I'm inherently bad. Not just the behavior is bad, but me as my personhood is flawed.
Yeah, I think the way that you're using guilt, I might say guilt/conviction.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to be clear about healthy guilt versus unhealthy guilt, right? Healthy guilt is more along the lines of conviction, where I've done something I maybe can own and learn to grow from. Unhealthy guilt is me taking responsibility and carrying things that don't belong to me, that I have no power or control over. Typically involves someone else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the reason that we're talking about this today, this topic at all, is because this is an invitation for you to go deeper into this. One, um, we are going to be talking deeper about shame in our Moving Beyond Insecurity Coaching Week, which is happening in June, the week of June 23rd. It's a 5-day coaching opportunity. It has a live component as well as exercises. And one of those days is going to be more focused on guilt and shame, where we do take a deep dive into that over a live Zoom meeting. For all of those who want to attend that, it is a very low fee. It still astounds me that this is a week-long coaching opportunity for $17. It's
I
a really
think
a bargain price to do some deep work.
I think that's one of the things I enjoy about the work that we do is that we can, and we often are generous where we can be with our time and our resources. And so this is a very generous opportunity for you to get a full week of coaching. And we prefer that you be there live if you can. And if you cannot, there will be replays for you. But we'll be taking a different topic every day about and related to insecurity. So if you're curious, go to the link and see if that might work for you. And again, there's minimal commitment and the opportunity for great benefit to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's just talk about that commitment. For $17, really what you're committing to is to receive the emails. And hopefully what you'll do is the exercises within those emails each day. So 5 days. And then there's an opportunity to join a live Zoom meeting where we take a deep dive into more about that exercise, what came out for you in that exercise, and then just doing some deeper exercises and work, having some experiences around that topic for an hour each day. And so the times vary depending on the day so that we can capture many of you who may work during the day or have other commitments. And so we do have some evening days and we do have afternoon days to offer, and those will be recorded. So if for some reason you can't attend live, you are able to rewatch that. But the live is really where the experience is, where you get your questions answered, where you really get to show up. And there's a lot of growth and being able to show up, especially when we're talking about shame, because shame thrives in isolation. Mm-hmm. And so if we can come together to break open this topic of shame and to really get vulnerable with each other, shining the light on it and putting it in community really helps it to dissipate.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to ask you to respond to this comment.
Mm-hmm.
When we asked about where do you shrink back or feel small, or feel the need to hide or shrink, and Renee, oops, my screen just jumped. Renee has said she tends to do that when she's in a room with people who have more credentials than she does, or when they're in a greater leadership role, and feels like she wonders what she has to offer and they know way more. Mm-hmm. Would you speak to that?
Well, I think so. I wish I could read that. I don't see it here, but I think there's a real statement there. So there's some comparison going on. Mm-hmm. There's insecurity for sure about, and the statement that might carry some weight for you is I'm not good enough as you compare to other people and think about the credentials that you don't have. It may be bringing up insecurity and comparison, and then therefore shame. I'm not good enough.
Yeah. I'm wondering, when you sit back and you think of yourself, are there places where I am enough?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can compare myself to a car mechanic, which I last week really needed to be like knowledgeable about cars because I was kind of getting taken for a ride. And I felt that like I wish I knew more, you know what I mean? And I wasn't enough to figure this out. And yeah, all of that. Mm-hmm. The truth of the matter is my talents and my strengths and my gifts are not that. And will I embrace who I am rather than walk in the shame of who I'm not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's some negative thinking that can go on there of, I don't have anything to offer, right? Yeah. Everybody knows more than me. Those kind of statements and themselves take you on a ride. They can spiral downward into a very desperate place of shame, right? Of something is wrong with me and I'm not good enough. And that can carry out then into your behavior. So being able to notice that thought pattern, and that's something we're going to be talking about in this coaching week, is negative thinking, and being able to stop that and replace it. Like Diana is sharing, This is not my area of expertise, but I do have area of expertise, right? This is why we need to live in community, because we can't know everything, and we do need to learn to rely on others that have expertise in areas that we don't, rather than shaming ourselves for not knowing everything, for being human, for being imperfect.
Yeah. Doing some self-exploration about what's going on with me when someone who has a leadership role shows up in the room and I take a lesser opinion of myself. There's so much good work you can do with that.
Mm-hmm.
Really explore and examine what's happening in you before we even move to how do I think about this differently. But what is that about? You know, sometimes it might be I didn't take an opportunity for a speaking position or a leadership position, and I regret that. So you may have some regret work to do as well. So there's a lot there to explore and to look at in terms of, you know, what is this about?
Yeah, that curiosity. What is this about?
Yeah.
And that sometimes can be painful. If you're sitting in shame, you may want to avoid that question. It may be terrifying to ask that question of what is it about? It's easier to just kind of numb out and avoid sometimes in the short term, but incredibly powerful to step forward into that question of what is this about? Let me get to know myself better. I am worth exploring. I'm worth knowing.
You mean take a step back when you're in that you mean take a step back when you're not in that situation, because it can be too threatening when you're in it. Is that what you're saying?
Or when you feel shame, period, whether you're in the moment or you've left the moment and you're still feeling the shame. When shame feels intense, I think we want to check out from the shame because it feels intense, rather than stepping forward into being able to sort through, what is this about for me? And a lot of that is gaining resilience to tolerate those emotions.
Yeah.
The intensity of shame. So a lot of regulation techniques are needed to kind of help you contain the feeling.
So we have some thoughts about how shame may show up for you. Let's see here. Love the insight owning these aren't my gifts. Yeah, we can't be good at everything. That's why we have expertise. Like our doctors, how many of you want to go to a generalist when you have a problem with your eye? I want to go to an eye specialist. Do you know what I mean? And we can't know everything. We can't be everything. But let me tell you, it is a truth. You were designed with gifts and strengths, and to walk in them. It's a fact. It's biblical. But anyways, some ways shame may show up is maybe I feel sensitive or I'm worried about what other people think of me, right? And then I engage in people pleasing. I might feel unappreciated or like somebody's taking advantage of me. I might be feeling rejected, regretful, blushing, or being afraid to look inappropriate or stupid. Sometimes when people are telling dirty jokes, I've had that happen to me in the past. Doesn't happen to me very often now. I would get ashamed or embarrassed. And it wasn't my shame or embarrassment to carry, it was theirs for the stuff they were putting out there. Do you know what I mean? Just how to respond or react in that. Even the fact that someone would say certain things in front of me, I might feel that. Yeah. What are your thoughts, Susan?
Yeah. So recognizing it, having that moment of reflection, right? What is this about for me? Do I need to feel this shame, or am I carrying someone else's emotions?
Yeah. What about what is happening now makes me embarrassed or feel shameful? Right? It's not okay with me. I wish I could speak up more. I wish I would have spoken up more. Yeah, anything like that.
Yeah, and how to do that can be hard. How do I speak up? How do I have boundaries? How do I have a no? How do I say this doesn't work for me? That's part of what we're going to be cultivating in this live component of moving beyond insecurity, this challenge is to really help you with some of that dialogue within yourself and with others.
Right.
How do you stand up for yourself? How do you get what you need? So I'm just reading a question. So the live component of the Insecurity Challenge Week is not going to be public. It's going to be for people who registered. I do want to make that clear, so that you can feel like you have a little bit more safety. We're going to be talking about confidentiality. And so it's not going to be just on, social media where anybody can read it. It will be private for those people who really want to take it seriously. I'm seeing another question here. So the question is, would you speak more about how to shine light on shame when you're feeling just too scared about opening up? People have not been kind to me. I don't know how to find someone to do this with. How can this challenge help me?
Speak more. Say that again, Susan. Would you speak more about what?
How to shine light on shame when you're feeling too scared to open up. So I think what you're talking about is finding safe people to share with, to be vulnerable with. And that can be tricky because there are a lot of unsafe people out there. So what we try to do in our community is create safety. So in this challenge that we're doing, this moving beyond insecurity coaching week is we're going to work to create some safety through confidentiality and cultivating acceptance and curiosity and kindness, compassion, to kind of help you move into that space. So judgment is not going to be great for that. So even bringing those for yourself, kindness, compassion, curiosity, can help shine some light on shame.
Yeah, I think really a big part of the challenge is we're going to be giving you tools and opportunities to practice these skills for internal resilience and strength, so that you can be strong within yourself, and then practice that with people. And as Susan said, we're not going to automatically know who's safe and who's not, but if we have an internal sense of strength, we can notice that and pivot and make some decisions about where I want to be open and honest and where I don't. That's really a part of gaining wisdom, isn't it? And we don't always, we don't always know that right up. We're always testing relationships to see what people are available for, and can they be safe for us and with us? And can we be safe for them?
Right. And it does take time for that, right? And so in your general life, opening up deeply about shameful things right away is not going to be safe. You do want to test the relationship in very small ways to see if other people are responsible with the information you share with them.
Right.
Are they encouraging? Are they compassionate? Are they kind to you? Do they hold your confidence in the smaller things? And that takes some time to cultivate. You don't know that overnight.
That was a great question. Thank you for that. So as we step really into exploring really this experience of shame with you, and our topic today, how do we silence shame? What are some of the techniques or the things that you have tried to silence that voice or that feeling of shame in your life?
Well, a big part of that we've talked about already is bringing curiosity to it. The willingness to explore what is this about for me, I think can be really important. And I think another really important thing is self-acceptance. The ability to accept the fact that We are imperfect human beings and we will make mistakes. And then also faith can be really important in that. What are your thoughts?
I like the silencing. I just think about our friendship, and if I'm struggling with the voice of shame, I might call a friend like you and speak about what's going on in my heart and mind and receive some healthy input. And I think that's really happens a lot in our communities that we have here as well. But so one of my strategies for silencing the voice of shame would be reaching out to a strong friend who has clarity and I know sees me. Another thing about silencing the voice of shame for me would be is to spend time alone in the Word and allow God to speak to my heart and mind. Sometimes it may not even be about shame, but after spending time with Him, I'm in a whole different place and it's lifted. I think it's always really important to notice what you're feeling and carrying and not just shove it down.
Absolutely.
And, again, silencing shame, one clarifying question is this about my identity or is this about an experience or a situation? And I want to be clear with myself. If I'm really taking on shame as my identity, it's not helpful. I'm sorry, I'm a little under the weather today, so I'm coughing a little bit, so I may be silencing myself here and there to cough. But yeah, just really identifying the roots of that.
Yeah, and going back to identity, right? What is my identity? Who is God's? Who does God say I am? That reminder can begin to silence shame. And we as believers have already been redeemed. And that can be so helpful, right? So you mentioned spending time in the Word to kind of process through. It's like going to a trusted friend, right? A safe, trusted friend, being with the Holy Spirit, being with the Word of God. So that's always available to us.
Practicing compassion is huge.
Yes.
Silencing the voice of shame for me also is recognizing those people in my life or in my past, or really mainly current situations, who bring criticism, who bring sarcasm and put downs, because when you're in an environment like that, you can take that on as your badness, your identity. And so it might be silencing shame in my life, might be staying away from those people who are the opposite, and they have the absence of affirming and compassion toward me. And that's self-protective.
Yeah, and I'm seeing Luz. I'm glad you're trying to sign up. If it says it's closed for you, it doesn't for me when I click the link, leslievernick.com/challenge. It looks like it's open and that I'm able to register. So you may just try that again, or cutting and pasting into your browser, seeing if that helps. If you do have difficulty registering, go to assistant@leslievernick.com for help in that. So what other questions do you have for Coach Diane and I around this topic of shame, or about our Moving Beyond Insecurity Coaching Week? Because we want to be here to answer those questions. I do see the question that was in the chat. How do we stay encouraged when we need to pivot? So I'm not sure what exactly that's about. Pivot from what? But you have any initial thoughts on that, Diana? How do we stay encouraged when we need to pivot?
I need more information. How do we stay encouraged when we need to pivot?
Yes.
Pivot from what?
Yes, exactly. So I think staying encouraged is even acknowledging the need to pivot. right? That's encouraging that you can notice it. So I don't know what it is you're wanting to pivot from. So perhaps it's conviction or guilt that's telling you, okay, you're not in alignment with God or with yourself. Um, so the encouragement again could come from the Word, being with the Holy Spirit and prayer. It could come from a trusted friend. It could come from your own self-talk.
When you say pivot, I flow through Instagram and I see that one clip from, oh gosh, the Friends episode of them trying to get the couch up the steps and yelling, pivot, and I think it's so true. And you think about it relationally, like how many times are we trying to make a relationship work that we just can't? And then that's really embodying them trying to get that up the steps. It's not going to work, and it's causing them pain and frustration, and they're trying really hard. And I think we got a response from that. Like if you're trying to pivot away from unself relationships, I think you use patience and compassion with yourself. And I also know that it is a truth that when we have one unsafe relationship, we may have many. And so what it means is I might have an absence of safe people for a small season. And I might have to walk alone. And so strengthening, it's okay. It's okay if you have a minimal amount of people in your life. It doesn't take many to walk with. One or two on your journey is fine. Don't feel like you have to have a ton of numerous people in your life. But it does mean, when I'm wanting to pivot and it's not working, I'm noticing the effect that it's having on me, and it's deteriorating myself, my image. I just don't feel good. I walk away from time with that person, and it's had a detrimental effect on me. I might be dysregulated. And so first thing is, with awareness, I'm going to notice this is not lighting up my soul. This is tearing me down. And, for me, staying encouraged is praying and trusting and believing that God will bring people in my life. And I know He has done that. When I've asked specifically for things, it may not happen overnight, but I know He does respond to that. And then the second thing is with compassion, noticing that you are worth being loved and being cared for and being respected in relationship. So staying encouraged in those ways, there are so many numerous things that you can do. But I just feel like I'd rather walk alone for a little bit than walk with people who are toxic and discouraging to me.
But as far as, walking alone, you don't always have to walk alone. We have this community here for a reason, right? And there are ways to access that. Even, through the blog posts, the newsletters, the website, there are lots of ways to be in community and get encouragement in a way that's not really public. You can just read the blogs or the newsletters, or go to the website and take the test. So it's about the relationship to kind of get some clarity. But we are here for you as a community. There's a lot that we offer in terms of helping you stay encouraged and stay strong to do whatever it is you need to do.
Do you want to encourage our listeners to do an exercise with us?
Sure. Yeah. What do you have planned?
Okay. You have to grab a pen and a sheet of paper. And I want you to think about a belief that shame has told you. It might be I'm not worthy. It might be I'm unlovable. It might be I'm alone, right? Coach Susan just talked about the truth that we're not alone, right? And I want you to write that down on your paper. And then take a moment and cross that out. Underneath it, I want you to think of a truth. So if it's I'm not lovable, it might be I am deeply loved and I'm valuable. What is your new truth? So I put mine, and I use the example for y'all is I'm alone, or I'm all alone, which would make it really even more concrete.
Mhm.
And so the pivot or the truth would be I have many people in my life who care about me deeply, or I have some people in my life who care about me deeply. What
Mhm.
is your new truth?
Or God cares about me deeply.
There you go.
We always have that.
Yeah.
So in that sense, pivoting from an old belief system that brings up shame to something new.
Yeah. Sometimes we use the term we fake it till we make it.
Mhm.
For me, like I might not embrace that new truth 100%, but the more that I meditate on that truth and change the narrative to how I want to see it, and embracing a more reasonable approximation of the truth, I will begin to receive that and notice that in my life.
Mhm. And doing it until you become it, right? That's
Right,
yeah.
right. And again, we want to say that your feelings can lead you astray. We really want to speak truth to ourselves.
Mhm. Yeah.
Do we have
So
any?
just
Go ahead.
I was just gonna address in the, chat, someone's asking about the times, practicality. So if you're able to go to that link, leslievernick.com/challenge, it does give you all the days and times that we're doing the challenge and the topics. So I think that could be really helpful for you to see. But there are various times. So there's some evening times and some noon times. So 7 o'clock Eastern as well as noon Eastern. So those variables will help. Hopefully everyone attend live at least some of the time.
I think we talked a little bit about this, but I'll kind of summarize some common feelings or some signs or behaviors that someone is dealing with shame. Um, Often, someone who kind of has a shame-based perspective won't look you in the eye. They may keep their head hung low. May have a sense of feeling frozen or unable to move, not able to speak freely or spontaneously. Sometimes people have a legitimate stutter, and other times it might be rooted in shame, not able to be assertive or vocal verbally, and a sense of maybe just wanting to hide themselves from who they are. Um, so those are just some signs that shame may be present in response to your question.
Mhm. I think we can also, like we shared before, of isolating. Those self-sabotage behaviors can be part of that.
Absolutely.
Lying, blaming, those things can indicate deep shame, which we see in really unhealthy people. Um, they are living out of deep shame.
Yeah. And then I think I'll just take this one last question, and please feel free to elaborate. We talked about this early on, the difference between, someone's asking the difference between guilt and shame. And it can be as simple as shame is I am bad, and guilt is I've done something bad.
Mhm.
So I would say guilt is more about a behavior. Shame is more about who I am or an identity.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
so,
thanks for going through that again.
yeah. So, as we're coming to a close, we want to invite you to share with us what your takeaways are from today. And we want to, again, invite you to get curious about our challenge and join us. Um, we hope that you're able to attend. We hope that you're able to attend the full week. Each day has a different topic dealing with insecurity. And we have some really good tools for you. But just thinking as we walk away from today, what have you found encouraging, helpful, or maybe even challenging? What are your takeaways from our talk together today?
Mm. Looks like that exercise was really beneficial that you did, Diana.
Nice.
Yeah. And perhaps I'm seeing also in the chat, struggling with shame and planning eventual escape if necessary.
Mm.
So hopefully just allowing the compassion, curiosity, the investigation of what comes up for you when you think about planning. What is the shame about for you?
Mm.
What are the sensations? What are the thoughts that may come in your mind? What is the statement about yourself that's being created in that shame? Because it's debilitating, right? It's stopping you from starting investigating the plan.
Mm-hmm.
So the pain of the shame might be what's keeping you from moving forward. If you can bring some curiosity to just explore it, what's going on, that may help you get unstuck and just start making baby steps.
Our Moving Beyond Insecurity Challenge is free for our Conquer members, but you do need to sign up and register to attend.
Yes. And if you are a member with Conquer, you're going to go to your dashboard to find that link. But for everyone else who has never even heard of Conquer or is not part of Conquer, it's only $17, right? Very low in terms of financial commitment, but I think there's a big gain over 5 days of really exploring topics like shame and guilt.
Yeah.
And also we're going to be talking about self-doubt and comparison, about perfectionism, how to silence that inner critic, and how to get beyond people pleasing as well. Those are some of the topics we're going to take a deep dive into because they're all related to insecurity. Any other thoughts, Diana, about this challenge or about our topic today, silencing shame without the guilt?
Well, about the challenge, I'm really excited about that. It's always fun to work with groups of ladies who are serious about self-analysis and creating transformation and change. And I think it's going to be a good use of your time and energy. Regarding silencing shame, I think the biggest piece with that is noticing who you are and you are not shame, and recognizing when it shows up and really correcting the talk around it. Sometimes if you want to do some deeper work, thinking about where did I learn this about myself? Where did I first take this on? Sometimes if we want to really dig up the roots, we can do that as well. But shame is not your name. God has given you a name. He's given you a purpose. He's given you strengths, talents, and that is who you have been designed to be. And more importantly, you've been designed to be loved and cherished. So don't let anyone else call you out and tell you that shame is your name.
Shame is not your name. Thank you for saying that. That little rhyme is so powerful. And just a reminder, that may be one of your tactics when you notice the sensation of shame or the behaviors around shame, is that in itself can help you regulate, right? That little poem, shame is not my name, can help you take a breath, have some compassion, get curious, and to then move forward in the direction of, or pivoting in a new direction of remembering who you are, remembering who God has called you to be, and the woman that you want to be. I am called chosen. That's a great thing to remember, Jen. All right. So I thank Karen for being here with us and for putting in the chat the link to join the challenge, leslievernick.com/challenge. If you're just listening today, we would love for you to be a part. You still have several weeks to gear up for this challenge. We're going to be starting in June, the third week of June.
We're very excited. We hope to see you there.
All right. So if there are no more questions, we're going to say goodbye for now. But Coach Diana and I will be back here on Monday to be talking more about the topic of guilt, how to say no without the guilt of disappointing others. So we're kind of taking the spin off from shame and talking more deeply about guilt. So I hope you're able to put that noon Eastern time on Monday, where we're going to dive deeper into that and continue to invite you into this coaching week that we're offering. So thanks for being here. Any final words, Diana?
No, I'm good.
Right.
Have a great weekend.
Yeah, have a great weekend. Bye, everyone.